MOSAIC, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
The Kuwaiti parliament rejected a bill allowing Kuwaiti women to participate in the municipal elections after the government failed to gather the majority of votes needed to pass that bill. Sheikh Sabah Al-Hamid, the Prime Minister, said that the government will issue a statement to hold the municipal elections without the inclusion of women.
The dream of Kuwaiti women to participate in the political process has turned into a mirage that sparkled under the hot burning sun. The draft bill that was supposed to allow them to participate in municipal elections was prematurely aborted. The Kuwaiti parliament held this session to take another vote on this bill. However, the government's failure to gather a majority of votes in support of this bill forced them to accept a new reality. Nevertheless, some claim that they are not making a serious effort to try and get the law passed. If the government was serious about the law, why didn't the Justice Minister intervene on this issue?
If someone was not present, you want to punish him? We can't do that.
The Kuwaiti government used the carrot and stick policy, threatening to dissolve the parliament, but this still did not change the minds of those who opposed the law, like members of the Islamic Party.
This is a victory for Kuwaiti women against those who were trying to shove them into political issues. What Kuwaiti women need is higher salaries and employment equality, not participation in municipal or national elections. We are thankful that the elections will take place next month without the participation of women. We oppose the involvement of women in politics and municipal elections because we consider it as politicizing Kuwaiti society, especially the Kuwaiti family, at a level that is inappropriate.
The government renewed its request to postpone the vote on the bill. In the next couple days, it will submit another draft election bill to be held within the next 2 months, which means that women will not be able to participate in such elections before 2009.
The election bill will be submitted within the next couple days. Women will not participate in these elections, but if the next law passes, they will participate in future ones.
Expressions of sadness appeared on the faces of the women who attended this session. Past experience has taught them that every time they come one step closer to their dream, it seems to move a mile further away. In the past few months, the Abdullah Salem Room witnessed a political tug-of-war between the government and the parliament over the issue of political participation by women. The results this time may have settled the controversy, but now it remains clear that Kuwaiti women will not participate in the municipal elections that will take place in the year 2005. From the Kuwaiti Parliament building, Syed Al-Ajmi, Abu Dhabi TV, Kuwait.
With us live from Kuwait is political activist Nada Al-Mutawwa. Mrs. Nada, first, did you lose the first round, since the draft bill that would have allowed women to participate in the political process did not succeed?
In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. Currently, we did not lose any battle from the battles on the law regarding political participation of women, whether it be at the municipal or national levels. This is just the beginning. I have comments to make about the statements from the 2 members of the opposition who we just heard from in this report. One of them is the head of the Human Rights Committee, and he is an opponent. And this committee meets with female activists at the United Nations outside of Kuwait. The second man is a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, and he works with a female ambassador from the United Nations outside of Kuwait. However, inside of Kuwait, he says he's against women being involved in politics. So they have a double standard in their positions. Meanwhile, the municipal elections bill did not fail. The voting on the bill will be postponed for 2 weeks from now, and there are reasons for postponing it.
The Italian report blames the Americans for the death of Nicola Calipari. On March 4th, a U.S. patrol unit opened fire at the vehicle transporting him to Baghdad International Airport. He was with another soldier and an Italian journalist, Giulia Sagrina, who was just released after being abducted and held hostage in Iraq for a month. The Italians blame the Americans for committing a grave mistake by killing an Italian intelligence agent, Nicola Calipari, at an American checkpoint near Baghdad International Airport, following the release of Italian journalist Giulia Sagrina. The Italian report on the killing of Calipari was published yesterday, and it completely contradicts the results of the American report. It holds the U.S. soldiers responsible for the incident. 2 days earlier, the U.S. Army released their report denying any responsibility for the death of Calipari. The report addressed point by point Washington's findings, most notably the U.S. Army's denial of receiving any information on the release of Giulia Sagrina. The security measures taken at the U.S. checkpoint were insufficient. The Italian report denies that speeding was a factor in the accident, adding that the driver was not speeding. Further, it blames the incident on some of the U.S. soldiers' inexperience and stress. The Italian press reported that the Italian Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi, was cautious in drafting the Italian report on the American killing of Calipari last March because of their relations with the United States. In 2 days, Berlusconi will meet with Italian MPs to explain the differences between the two reports. Meanwhile, his supporters are calling for the withdrawal of 3,000 Italian soldiers that have been deployed to the southern Iraqi city of Nasiriyah since June 2003.
The Americans must accept responsibility and at least admit to their responsibility for this incident.
Heading a meeting of a commission tasked with streamlining the transport sector, the Prime Minister called for updating a well-defined strategy to tackle traffic congestions and cut on energy consumption. Badran urged transport authorities to answer to public complaints, upgrade the infrastructure, and elevate the sector's contribution to the overall development process. The meeting, attended by Minister of Transport Saoud Sirat, tackled various measures to offer a better transport service to the public. Iraq failed to name 5 ministers, including the key oil portfolio, as its new government was sworn into office. Sunnis are expected to fill the majority of posts yet to be taken up. In the meantime, Prime Minister Ibrahim Jafari will serve as Defense Minister and Ahmed Chalabi will act as Oil Minister. Once complete, the cabinet will have 36 members plus a Prime Minister. But with a government in place, the violence on the ground continues unabated, with about 24 deaths in a fresh wave of bombings and shootings. Samir Jamil has more.
A historic day in Iraq. The country swore in the new government in a special ceremony, though amidst tight security. The ceremony comes 3 months after the elections and with 5 ministers still unfilled. But an oil minister is still to be named, fueling uncertainty in an industry already troubled by guerrilla sabotage attacks in crude pipelines. An aide to Prime Minister Ibrahim al-Jafari said hours earlier that U.S.-educated engineer Ibrahim Bahr al-Ulum was expected to be sworn in as permanent oil minister later in the day. President Jalal Talbani said the ceremony was a landmark, but reminded the ministers of the hard task ahead. The millions of Iraqis who braved suicide bombs to vote in the January 30 elections hoped they would be rewarded by new leaders who would build up security forces and tackle violence. Even though development of the political front took place, the daily aggression on the ground continued to escalate. In Samarra, north of Baghdad, police said gunmen shot dead 3 Iraqi policemen. It was one of several attacks during the day which claimed the lives of at least 14 civilians and 5 Iraqi policemen. Most of them died when U.S. forces and Iraqi National Guardsmen battled insurgents in the city of Ramadi, west of Baghdad. U.S. forces killed 14 people during a pitched battle at a checkpoint. U.S. forces also said they killed 12 suspected insurgents in the firefight and bombing yesterday in the city of Qa'im near the Syrian border. The military said 6 American soldiers were wounded in the fight near the border. It added in a written statement that American troops killed 9 insurgents and that 3 people were killed by a coalition airstrike. A 6-year-old girl and a guerrilla were wounded in the battle. In Baghdad, a car bomb exploded near a U.S. convoy, wounding 3 civilians, 2 of them seriously. Most of the damage was caused to 2 civilian buses, which were totally destroyed in the explosion, as well as a number of cars. The attack took place in Al-Amiriya neighborhood of western Baghdad, near the airport road, considered the most dangerous in Baghdad, and where U.S. supplies and convoys frequently drive. Also in Baghdad, Iraqi National Guard seized a car packed with explosives in the Karada neighborhood of the capital. Explosive experts arrived at the scene and dismantled the explosives concealed inside bottles of gas and packets of chips. Samir Jamil, Jordan Television.
The U.S. military has said search teams found the body of a U.S. Marine pilot whose F-18 crashed in Iraq, but a second warplane is still missing. The 2 F-18s disappeared last night while flying missions from the nuclear-powered USS Carl Vinson, which is based in the Gulf of southern Iraq. A military spokesman said there were no indications the planes had come down under hostile fire. It was not clear if they might have collided during a heavy sand and lightning storm that hit central Iraq around the time they went missing. Palestinians have condemned an Israeli plan to set up the first university in a Jewish settlement in the West Bank. Prime Minister Ahmed Quraysh denounced the plan to build the college in Ariel settlement south of Nablus as a further violation of agreements and part of expansionist Israeli schemes that would not help the peace process. He spoke as the Palestinian cabinet discussed Israel's plans to expand settlements, the proposed building of a wall in the center of the West Bank town of Hebron, and an Israeli raid into a village near the West Bank town of Tul Karam yesterday, which left a Palestinian and an Israeli soldier dead. Quraysh said Palestinians could not afford to turn a blind eye on Israeli violations in the run-up to a withdrawal from the Gaza Strip. In the Gaza Strip, U.S. economic envoy James Wolfenson saw first-hand Palestinian suffering at Israeli-controlled crossing points. Wolfenson called for lifting restrictions on border crossings and ensure free movement. Also in Gaza, Palestinian police arrested 2 Hamas members on their way to fire rockets into Israel after a gunfight. The clash last night was the first between police and militants since President Mahmoud Abbas ordered security forces to use an iron fist to maintain a ceasefire with Israel.
Progressive Socialist Party leader Walid Jumblat reaffirmed an alliance with Maronite Patriarch Cardinal Nasrallah Boutros Fer, the family of the late Prime Minister Rafiq al-Hariri, and the Kurnet Chehwan front ahead of legislative elections this month. Jumblat, who met Patriarch Fer, accused President Emil Lahoud and the quote Syria's men of exploiting the current atmosphere to outbid the opposition and instigate tensions with Christians. Jumblat also said there must be dialogue with Hezbollah over its arms. The UN has been pressing for the group's disarmament. The opposition is pressing for 11th hour changes to an electoral law it regards as unfavorable, just 2 days before the president is to call elections. Opposition parties want revisions to the constituency boundaries established for the last elections in 2000. And after a 5-day parliamentary recess for public holidays, Wednesday will be their last opportunity to change the law. But so far, Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has rebuffed calls for a debate. Sarah Khoury has the story.
Opposition leader Walid Jumblat met the Maronite Patriarch in Kirkuk, where he accused President Lahoud of systematic sectarian incitement, saying he continues to head a military regime with a nucleus team. He said Lahoud was outbidding the opposition to instigate tensions with Christians. Jumblat said most opposition demands have been met, including a Syrian pullout, an international probe into the late Prime Minister Rafik Hariri's bomb assassination, and the dismissal of security chiefs, although more, quote, heads will roll. Addressing upcoming elections, which stopped his discussion with Cardinal Nasrallah Boutrosfer, Jumblat recalled that loyalists, especially Hezbollah and Speaker Nabih Berri's Amal movement, wanted an electoral law based on proportional representation and large-sized voting districts, while the opposition demanded the much smaller constituency of Qada. He revealed that the UN urged him to meet Hezbollah and Amal leaders to agree on a formula which would allow the elections to take place on schedule and not be delayed. He had questioned why the staunchly pro-Syrian Lahoud, quote, all of a sudden remembered he was a Christian. Lahoud's family and closest aides have been calling for a new session in parliament to discuss the electoral law that will govern next month's legislative polls, claiming the 2000 law targeted the Christians. Speaker Berri had denied allegations that he acted on Syrian orders to derail a meeting of the Joint Committees last week, which was supposed to discuss proposed electoral laws. A lack of quorum torpedoed the meeting on Thursday. It was the final constitutional deadline for an agreement on a new electoral law. Some elections will have to be held under the 2000 electoral law. MPs were supposed to discuss a law proposed by the previous government and supported by the opposition to divide Lebanon into the smallest possible voting district favored by Maronite Church. At this point, any moves to adopt a new law would push back elections by about 6 months, amid strong international pressure for elections to take place on schedule, following Syria's military pullout after a 29-year presence. Lebanon's new government had won a vote of confidence in parliament and immediately called the elections to start on May 29th. The opposition is keen for the election, which they expect to give them a majority in the House, now dominated by allies of Damascus, to take place on time. Deputy Speaker Michel Mour, whose son is the defense minister and son-in-law of President Lahoud, was accused of triggering the latest controversy after he chaired the Joint Committee's meeting that never took place. He proposed holding an extraordinary session on Wednesday to discuss a new law and hinted a call for elections will not be signed by Lahoud, who was accused by the opposition of throwing Lebanon into its political crisis after Syria forced a constitutional amendment to keep him in power last September. There was a coordinated effort by Lahoud's family and what the opposition said were remains of the Syrian-backed military regime to delay the polls. The Kurnet Shehwan opposition front, a gathering of Christian MPs and figures, criticized the 2000 law and rejected it, but made clear it will take part in the ballot. Opposition leader General Michel Ron, who ends his Paris exile on Saturday, was critical of the law ahead of his return. Upon returning from a trip to France, Patriarch Sfer made clear the ballots should take place on time. He said the situation is being closely watched by the international community and reiterated that the smallest voting district was the best option.
The spokesman of the Iranian Foreign Ministry, Hamid Rida Asafi, said that next week Tehran will announce the resumption of some of its nuclear programs as negotiations with the Europeans continue. Asafi strongly rejected the threatening language used by the German Foreign Minister Joschka Fischer, who threatened to end the negotiations if Iran resumes its nuclear activities.
Threats and counter-threats seem to be all that we hear from the European and Iranian nuclear negotiations. This is alarming because it shows that the Iranian nuclear program may have entered a new phase after little results were achieved in the last round of Iranian-European negotiations in London.
We have entered a new phase and we can no longer turn back. Previous measures lost their influence and new ones must be taken. Of course, negotiations with the Europeans will continue. At the present time, resuming the uranium enrichment program is not considered valid. We are studying the possibility of resuming some nuclear activities.
These activities are related to the possibility of producing USF gas in the Aswan complex. This is part of a series of steps needed to produce nuclear energy. Next week, the Iranian leadership will study this decision, which angered the Europeans as soon as it was announced. Joschka Fischer, the German foreign minister, said that the Iranian decision to resume its nuclear activity is equivalent to halting the negotiations.
Such threats do not scare us. We said many times that negotiations are not the goal. These negotiations must produce tangible results.
Tehran accuses the Europeans of wasting time in these negotiations, which were supposed to produce tangible results in 3 months. 5 months of negotiations have passed without achieving anything tangible. Iran says that the ball is in the European court after voluntarily suspending its nuclear activity for 1 year and committing itself to the additional protocol, despite the fact that the International Atomic Energy Agency has confirmed on several occasions that Iran's nuclear program is not for military purposes. The Iranian nuclear program is the most prevailing issue in the coming presidential election in the country.
Our country is a member in the International Atomic Energy Agency, and we have the right to acquire nuclear technology.
Tehran strongly refuses to link its nuclear program with the presidential elections, like some European countries are trying to do. Observers predict that this problematic file will generate more surprises in the coming days. The Iranian nuclear file has entered a new phase as negotiating parties are using new cards to achieve what they failed to do during the negotiations. Rabah Behruz, Al-Alam, Tehran.
Egyptian experts on Islamic groups warned the Egyptian government that oppression and mass arrest will not provide security following the 2 attacks in Cairo last Saturday. These experts say that a new generation of young men are angry with the Western policy and frustrated by the poverty, corruption, and lack of freedom. These young men have a large base of recruitment for the violent groups that target Westerners for the mere fact that they are Westerners.
The Egyptian government publicized the 2 recent incidents as isolated attacks to undermine their importance. However, many experts on Islamic groups say that the attack targeting Western tourists in the heart of Cairo are carried out by a new generation, motivated by their anger towards the West. They confirm that the Egyptian authorities do not have sufficient information about these new groups.
What happened in Egypt recently is that this new wave of regional violence has now reached Cairo, just like it reached other capitals. And the main problem is that the source of this new wave of violence is still unknown, and no one knows who will carry out the next attack. There are groups who are angry with the American soldiers and can't attack them directly, so they attack Western tourists instead because they are associated with the American enemy.
Some say that this phenomena reflect the failure in dealing with economic and social problems, and that poverty kills people's minds, like this pharmacist whose store is only a few meters away from the apartment of Ihab Yusri Yassin, who carried out the attack on Saturday in Abd al-Mun'im Riyadh Square in Cairo. Yassin's sister and his fiancé attacked a bus carrying 40 Israeli tourists in Aisha Square in the old city of Cairo. However, this is not the whole story.
There is a clear link between these incidents and the public anger created by the war in Iraq, the state of chaos, and the increase of violence.
Egyptian security forces launched a mass arrest campaign, detaining about 200 people based on the emergency laws.
Security officials in the entire world can do their job, but they can't do anything about the historical, social, and educational factors that created this phenomenon. In order to deal with these factors, all violations to international treaties and laws must be stopped, and the rights and sovereignty of nations must be given back.
Egyptian security authorities confirm that the 3 recent attacks in Cairo, which happened in the past 3 weeks, are not linked to the attack against the Hilton Hotel in Taba, which killed Israeli tourists at the end of last year. However, political analysts say that the phenomena of the young generation of angry young men may continue to expand. Two terrorists were arrested by the security forces. They belong to the group that assassinated 14 people on April 7th in the area of Araba. The leader of this 5-member group was among the two who were captured. Investigations are ongoing and the police are still searching for other members. The security forces found large amounts of weapons, ammunition, machine guns, communication devices, gold and money. Now to Malika Saidur.
On April 7th, on National Road number 8 connecting Arba'a to Taghla, a terrorist group blocked the road, killing 14 people. The security forces immediately started a search and investigation campaign, leading to the arrest of 2 terrorists on April 17th. They had 2 automatic weapons, a hand grenade and TNT. The terrorist group that was arrested belongs to an Islamic armed group called Jilia. The members are Shama Muhammad, also known as Al-Karaka, Owakil Bil-Nawar, also known as Yassin. He's the leader of the April 7th attack. This is what he had to say.
We put up a fake checkpoint on the street to stop cars. One man was across from me. One car went through the cable accidentally and then stopped, but another car passed through with 2 people. I went to the car that stopped next to me. It was a taxi with 5 passengers. I asked the taxi driver to give me his driver's license, and he did. After every one of us took his position, I killed the driver. Then I went to the next car, which had 2 people, and I killed them. Then I came back to the taxi, and there were 4 people who were still alive. 2 started running, and I could not follow them. They escaped. Then I inspected a truck and found 3 women who were still alive. I killed 2 of them. We killed more people, then we left.
How many people did you kill?
I killed 7.
What kind of people passed through here?
Mainly civilians and regular people.
Was there a wedding entourage?
No, the people came from the coastal area to ask for someone's hand.
What did you do to the woman that you took?
We raped her and then killed her.
Where did you rape her?
Above the road.
The terrorist group camouflaged themselves and set up false checkpoints, dressed as security officers taking advantage of the citizens' trust. The uniforms were later confiscated by the police. The security forces conducted search campaigns in the period between April 19th to the 25th, including the areas of Arba'a, Tansgida, and Hammam al-Wan. They confiscated a sizable amount of weapons and ammunition, including 28 Kalashnikov machine guns, 2 semi-automatic Semenov rifles, 4 more machine guns, 2 rocket-propelled grenades RPG-7, heavy automatic weapons 12.7mm, automatic pistols Ashkashi-3, a Thompson automatic rifle, 60 hunting rifles, 10 of them sawed off, 8 machine guns, 7 kilograms of TNT, and a large amount of ammunition of all kinds. The security forces also confiscated large amounts of gold, money, and electronic devices. Meanwhile, the search campaign is ongoing in pursuit of the other members of the group who committed the April 17th attacks, and they are Bilkhairi Yusuf, known as Abu Utbah, Allam Yakhlif, known as Abu Umara, Abir Ali, known as Yusuf, and Umirish Abdul Qadir, known as Abu Dahdah.
The views expressed on MOSAIC are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. MOSAIC is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.